It's Chair Barden here, and I am in the council chambers with several members of the staff, and I can see a lot of you folks now on the Zoom screen. So for all of you out there on the internet and all ships at sea, we are calling the Tuesday, November 17th, 2020 meeting of the Oceanside Utilities Commission meeting to order at this time. So with that, I'm going to go to item number 1. I've called the meeting to order. Who would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Director Dale, would you lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us this afternoon, please?
Absolutely. Put your hand on your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan, would you take roll call, please?
Yes, I will. All right, we will have one absence today. Commissioner Airy will not be with us. All right, here we go. Chair Barden.
Present.
Commissioner Boyle.
Here.
Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
Commissioner Cutler.
Present.
Commissioner Rates.
Present.
Commissioner Rupp.
Present.
Commissioner Vey.
Present.
Awesome, that completes roll call.
Okay, and we have a quorum. So we're having our first meeting on Zoom here for the Utility Commission, so I appreciate everybody's flexibility and staff, your capability in making this happen for us. So we'll go with our meeting here today. We've had roll call, item number 3. Item number 4 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes as they're presented in the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, hearing none, I hear a motion to approve. Was that Commissioner Boyle?
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Did you get who that was?
Mr. Vey,
Mr.
second.
Gray, thank you, Commissioner Vey. Okay, we have a first and a second for the minutes. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Or any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, that item passes as the minutes are approved. Thank you. Item number 5, public comment. I do not see any members of the public here. We have a limited amount of attendees. Are there any written comments that have been submitted by the public today?
We have no comments at this time.
Okay, no members of the public are in attendance, and we have no written comments. Item number 6, we've got a series of presentations here this afternoon. A couple appear to be related to some action items further on in the agenda, but at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Director Dale, who's taking the podium and who's going to provide the first presentation. And I'm assuming that this just all works by magic and everybody's all seeing this like I'm seeing in the council chamber. So with that, Director Dale, welcome. It's nice to see you in person, and the floor is yours for the presentation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see everybody both here as well as virtually. I am here to talk about an ordinance which will amend chapters 13 and 37. That's the water ordinance as well as the solid waste ordinance. This is a continuation of an item from the previous commission meeting. Staff is recommending that the ordinance be introduced. It amends various sections of Chapter 13 and 37 of the Oceanside City Code. Those sections pertain to water service as well as solid waste and recycling. A lot of the changes are administrative type changes. There have not been a lot of updates to either ordinance in quite some time. We've had some changes to legislation specific to the solid waste program. We've also had some changes to our business practices. There are corrections in the ordinance to reflect proper grammar, spelling, formatting, even some of the terms that are currently used in the utility. So changes are proposed for both of those chapters, again, Chapter 13 as well as Chapter 37. In the solid waste ordinance, Chapter 13, some of the more high-level changes include language changes associated with the food scrap diversion program for commercial customers. So a lot of the nomenclature that's used in the solid waste industry is reflected there, as well as some of the specific mandates from the state of California. When we were reviewing the solid waste ordinance, we also found that there were provisions in the ordinance that were related to account management. So if somebody didn't pay their solid waste bill, it would initiate a procedure for shut off, and really that is already contained in the water code. So we found that to be a duplication and have removed those portions of the ordinances. We also updated the hours when residents can place carts out for service. We rolled it back from 6 p.m. to 4 p.m., and that was in response to complaints that we had received from some of the community. In the water ordinance, Chapter 37, we had a change of business hours for the utility billing office, as well as changes to processes for deposits on accounts. So those, the language that's contained in the proposed ordinance reflects the current practice. We've also updated the names of current staff positions. We had quite a few positions that were very old and are no longer used here at the city. We've changed the gender language. There was a lot of he or more language that didn't reflect the current roles of some of the folks that are here in the utilities. We updated the terms used in the water industry, as well as current department names, which may have changed over time, have updated the business processes, as well as some of the orders that pertain to implementation of the stormwater program. We've also suggested changes related to the development process as it pertains to the water utility. We've clarified some language to define what fees are included, especially as they relate to recycled water services as well, and how those are calculated. We did have a change to the number of residential units from 3 to 4 that would trigger certain improvements. Those pertain as well to recycled water infrastructure construction. We've defined where and when a developer would pay a fee in lieu of construction of improvements. That's been a little squishy in the ordinance up until now, so this has a better definition for that. We've also defined how fees and credits are issued when we have a request by the customer to upsize or downsize meters. Of course, there are a lot of other minor changes that are included in the proposed ordinance changes. We've included and emailed a track changes version of the ordinance so that you can peruse those. We did not have that attached to our staff report when we sent it out and posted it originally, but we are recommending that the commission move this action forward to City Council so that the ordinances can be introduced. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. I know this is related to an action item 8A later on the agenda, so would you like to take your questions now? Then, Director Dale, yes, you would.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
take questions now if you'd like.
Okay, we're open for questions on this item now for Director Dale. If there's any questions, comments? Hearing none on that presentation, so I think we'll move right along on to the next one then. Item 6B now will be Ms. Leahy on the pure water monitoring wells. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Carrie, for the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair Barden, Utilities Commissioners, Lindsay Leahy, Principal Water Engineer. You may remember this item from our last month's meeting. We are bringing it back because there have been some changes. So this is the Pure Water Oceanside Monitoring Wells Award of Contract. Today, staff is recommending that we reject the bid for the construction of Pure Water Oceanside Monitoring Wells contract, authorize the city engineer to execute change order number 1 in the amount of $758,000 to NorCal Pump and Well Drilling for the construction of the monitoring wells, which would bring their total contract value to $4,428,068. Authorize the city engineer to execute change orders up to the revised total contract value of 10%, or 10% of that revised contract value, and authorize the city manager or designee to execute these contracts and agreements. Again, this is Phase 2D of the Pure Water Oceanside program. This is the 5th and final construction contract or phase of work. As a reminder, this is looking at Pure Water Oceanside as a whole with the advanced water purification facility to the north and at the top of that image, the red and yellow showing the 2 separate pipeline construction contracts, the red and white circles identifying the injection wells, with the green and white circles identifying the monitoring wells. Through the background, there have been multiple recycled water plans, indirect potable reuse studies, desal studies occurring from 2015 on, with the intent to meet council's goal of 50% local water supply by 2030. In December of 2018, we received our Planning Commission's approval for the Mitigated Negative Declaration and Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, and had the conditional use permit for the project approved. Since December of 2019, we have awarded the previous 4 contracts from 2A through 2C. And in September of 2020, we advertised contract 2D, which is the monitoring well construction, for bid, and we opened that bid on October 14th of 2020. Again, wanted to mention our really highly recognized outreach program. It's been wonderful working with that group, and we did receive the 2020 EPIC Awards for that outreach campaign that continues through construction. The construction bid result that we received on October 14th was from Yellow Jacket Drilling for $827,250. This was below the engineer's estimate. We did only receive the 1 bid. There were 4 other contractors who attended our mandatory pre-bid meeting. However, they did not submit bids. Upon evaluation of this bid, which occurred just after we brought this item last month, we did notice that the contractor did not meet the good faith effort for the disadvantaged business enterprise. There's a long list of requirements the contractor has to meet in order to advertise this project to disadvantaged businesses. And this is a requirement of our WIFIA funding for the Pure Water project. As such, the project, if we awarded it to this contractor, would not be eligible for funding from the WIFIA program. And that's why we are recommending to reject the bid that was received. From this point forward, we have 2 options. Option 1 is to re-advertise the contract for bid. This would extend the construction impacts to the residents. We are just about to begin the injection well drilling. And so we were hoping to have all this construction happening at the same time. So by rebidding the project, coming back to council and the Utilities Commission, it would extend that construction schedule. Additionally, we won't know how those bid costs are going to come in. They could come in the same, they could come in higher or lower than what the bid received was. The second option is to add this monitoring wells drilling scope to an existing contract via a change order. This would allow the injection wells and the monitoring wells to be drilled concurrently, thus minimizing the impacts to the residents, compacting that construction schedule, and the change order cost we received from NorCal Pump and Well Drilling was lower than both the engineer's estimate, our budget, and the bid that was received for the project. With that, staff is recommending to add this scope under the existing contract with NorCal Pump via a change order. Staff has consulted with counsel, with our attorney's office here, as well as consulted with the Environmental Protection Agency to ensure that this change order would meet all requirements as well as meet our funding requirements. NorCal Pump and Well Drilling already performed the good faith effort with their first contract, and that would align with this change order. If the change order is approved, it would increase the contract value to $4,428,068. And with that, to not take up the contingency and have an appropriate contingency value available, we would request that we increase the contingency allowance another $775,000 to a total of $442,807 for the city engineer to execute those change orders. This is a look at the overall budget for the Pure Water account. There is a current remaining available balance of $953,963 for this project. After the change order, as well as the allowance for the contingency, there would be a remaining balance of $120,163 in the project account. And this project is being funded by the EPA WIFIA loan, as well as our developer fees for the water system expansion. And with that, staff recommends that we reject the bid received for the Pure Water Construction Monitoring Wells contract, authorize the city engineer to execute change order number 1 to NorCal Pump, authorize the city engineer to execute change orders up to the total of 10% of the revised contract value, and authorize the city manager or designee to execute the contracts and agreements. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Leahy, for that presentation. I know that's part of a large project. Any questions, comments for Ms. Leahy on that topic?
This is Commissioner Cutler. I have just one question. It's actually probably a two-part question. So we rejected the bid. Does the contractor, the Yellow Jacket, have a protest period that they can protest our disposition? And if so, will that expire before council awards the contract?
Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. Commissioners, the contractor can essentially protest, I believe, up until the council date where we reject the bid. We have not received any contact from the contractor at this time.
Okay.
Either option, we would be rejecting their bid. It would just be whether we re-advertise the project or authorize a change order.
My only thought is to avoid any further delays, because if we're not able to award at council and we have to rebid it, that's another 2 months delay probably or more.
Correct. We're attempting to avoid that by issuing this change order.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Leahy, this is Chair Barden. The follow-up to that is the contractor, is Yellow Jacket aware that they weren't able to satisfy the requirements of the WIFIA to allow you to award them the contract? They are aware of that. Is that correct?
That is correct. They are aware they did not submit proof for the good faith effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Leahy or comments on this item? It is an action item we'll consider later on in the agenda as well. Okay, hearing none, thank you, Ms. Leahy, for that presentation. We're going to move right on to item number 6C, Buccaneer Lift Station Amendment, and you're just going to stay right up there, Ms. Leahy. Okay, thank you. 6C we're on now.
Thank you. And again, Lindsay Leahy for item number 6C, Amendment 2 to the Tetra Tech Incorporated contract for the design of Buccaneer Lift Station. Staff is recommending that Commission and Council approve Amendment number 2 in the amount of $1,043,226 to the professional services agreement with Tetra Tech for a revised total contract amount of $2,916,722, and authorize the city manager or designee to execute the contracts and agreements. In September of 2015, Council approved a professional services agreement with Tetra Tech for a contract value of $1,373,000. In April of 2019, Council approved Amendment number 1 for $500,496. In May of 2019, staff submitted a conditional use permit application and plans for the project, which was at 70% design at the time. And in January of 2020, staff began a hydraulic analysis of the existing Buena Vista force main, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on. The Buccaneer Lift Station would be adding flow into the existing Buena Vista force main towards the center of the city. This additional flow, while we were looking at that, the additional flow would actually require that a new lift station be constructed near the Mesa Garrison intersection, as it would cause a backup and a change of a hydraulic pressure point within our system and pressurize a pipeline and not allow a gravity flow to then enter that pipeline. With the addition of this new sewer lift station, we would now have 3 lift stations pumping into the same pipeline. This would be Buena Vista Lift Station, the Buccaneer Lift Station, which is the item today, as well as this new lift station we are calling the El Corazon Lift Station. And so because of that, we wanted to make sure that we were analyzing the whole system, how it would operate, and determine the additional analysis and the design criteria for all 3 of these lift stations. So that brings us to item number, or our Amendment 2 scope. This would be amending and revising the pump and variable frequency drive modifications from that resulted from this hydraulic analysis results. Tetra Tech has been involved with the coordination of this hydraulic analysis. There's multiple design firms on board and all coordinating that effort together. This would also include site grading updates to meet our WIFIA funding requirements. WIFIA funding requires that the project be built outside of the 500-year floodplain. And so this would be changing those design, the grading for the project to meet those requirements. Additionally, we are going to modify the architecture to align with the Planning Commission's request for similar lift stations that have been approved in prior years. Adding the UV building architecture and updating the renderings for that to also be submitted with our conditional use permit. We've included a path from Pacific Street to the east to connect to the future coastal rail trail. There's additional scope that came up through the conditional use permit review comments that require some design changes on the project that were not originally included in the in Tetra Tech scope. Additionally, while we're going through this whole site revision for La Salina, the UV treatment building that's out there and the system that's out there is in need of some upgrades. And because some of these upgrades are going to be including underground work, we want to be able to incorporate the underground work during the construction of the Buccaneer Lift Station, so we're not having to tear up that new asphalt a second time and save some money on economies of scale. So we wanted to add the UV treatment upgrade scope design into the Tetra Tech contract, so we had the design completed and complete the construction of the underground work with the construction of Buccaneer Lift Station, and then keep the future treatment upgrades for a later construction contract. And then additionally, support services during construction were not originally included in the original design contract. I wanted to incorporate it now to minimize any future amendments. If we didn't include this item in this amendment now, it would need to be included in a third amendment to the contract so that the design consultant can stay on the team through construction to respond to submittals and requests for information from the contractors. With that, so amendment number 2 is for $1,043,226 for Tetra Tech's revised contract value of $2,916,722. The available balance in the Buccaneer Lift Station account is $4,419,816, and sufficient funds are available. Funding for this project is coming from our sewer flow and services charges, as well as we are in the process for the WIFIA funding for the sewer project that will come at a later date. And with that, staff recommends approve amendment number 2 with Tetra Tech and authorize the city manager or designee to execute the contracts.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Leahy, for that very thorough presentation. Any questions at this time for Ms. Leahy on this item? It will be an action item later on the agenda. Questions, comments?
Commissioner Cutler, is there a reason we awarded this as an amendment to the existing contract and didn't go out for a separate RFP?
The reasoning was because, is there a specific scope that you thought should be as a separate RFP, or most of the scope is part of the Buccaneer Lift Station project and is needed to complete that design with the exception of the UV building?
It's just a significant amendment. The original contract was 1.3 million and change, and since then it's up to almost 3 million. So it's more than doubled from the original contract value. I'm just wondering if some of this work was standalone and could be warranted as a separate RFP. Just want to make sure that we're being reasonable in awarding these kinds of amendments.
Thank you, Commissioner Cutler and Utilities Commissioners. I understand your thoughts. Again, the majority of the work effort is for scope specifically related to the design of Buccaneer Lift Station. A big majority of the cost is also for the construction support services that wasn't originally included in the scope from the original RFP and the original contract with Tetra Tech. That's something that we are incorporating as a program now and a procedure in the department to have as part of the original contract value so that we are avoiding these amendments in the future. But the only item that could potentially have been a different contract would be the UV treatment upgrades. However, because we want them to coincide, the underground work to coincide with the construction of Buccaneer Lift Station, it seemed fitting to keep it within this contract and was a minimal value for the overall change order.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cutler, okay. Is there any other questions? Otherwise, I had a follow-up comment kind of on that topic as well. Is there any other comments or questions for Ms. Leahy? Hearing none, I guess I would comment on Commissioner Cutler's thought as well. Just when you see the magnitude of the change order, it's a professional service agreement for design services. It's $1 million. I guess one thing that might help me, I had a similar concern. I understand there's a lot going on with it, and I'm sure your judgment in how we're addressing it moving forward is absolutely the best way to go. Could you go to the slide, though, that shows the things that were this scope expansion? Because that's really what you're talking about here, is as you're getting into the project a certain way, there's things that are being added to the consultant's scope. So this is the expansion of scope. Without much detail, there's a lot there. Could you just give us, maybe this would be helpful for me along those same lines, what's the big ones here? I mean, they're not all equal. Is the design of the UV a large one, for example? I mean, does one or two of these suck up most of that $1 million? That might be a little useful in understanding the nature of the change order, at least for me.
Correct. So yes, Commissioner Barter and utility commissioners, again, the majority of the time and effort are going to be spent with the updating the pump and VFD modifications for the project and upgrading the site grading plans and the site grading requirements. Both of those are necessary in order for the project to move forward and meet our funding requirements.
Okay.
Another big item is going to be the support services during construction. This is a long construction contract. And to keep the design consultants on board through that duration, it does involve a lot of effort and time on the consultant's end. Those, I would say, are the majority of the costs. There are additional costs and scope that have come from the conditional use permit requirements. Again, it's scope related specifically to this contract, but pretty minor. And then updating the architecture now to match the previously approved lift stations that just got completed with design. Those, again, are minor costs, but they're less costs now. That would have had to happen in the future had we not done this now. As I mentioned, we could have waited on the support services during construction, but I wanted to bring this now to essentially not have any future amendments. Otherwise, we'd be going forward knowing that this was going to come in an amendment 3.
Just a follow-on question. Is your preferred practice to, when you award the original design contract, to not have the support services during contract included originally? And then, I mean, what's your thought on which way to go on that? Put it in up front or bring it in later on once you know more about it?
My personal preference is to include it in the original scope and have the consultant bid on it during the RFP process. This contract was originally awarded in 2015, and that wasn't the practice of the department at the time. It was to add these services during the award of the construction contract. So now, and again, in order to reduce the number of amendments that we take to commission and council, we're trying to incorporate them in the beginning of the scope.
Okay, all right. Thank you for those follow-up comments. Is there any other questions or comments from Ms. Leahy on this item before we move on? We still got quite a bit of stuff on the agenda. Okay, hearing none, we've got one last presentation here. Last but not least, Ms. Colleen Foster is going to update us on the zero waste plan. And I believe there is an action item for this later on in our agenda as well. So as Ms. Leahy is following protocols, leaving the speaking area, Ms. Foster will now take her place at the podium. Good afternoon. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Good.
Welcome.
Great to see you as well. Good evening, Honorable Chairperson Barden and Commissioners. It's great to be here today. My name is Colleen Foster. I'm going to be presenting our city's Zero Waste Plan 2020. Staff is recommending that the City Council adopt a resolution to approve the 2020 Zero Waste Plan. The Zero Waste Plan and goal was originally adopted by the City of Oceanside in 2010. The resolution adopted in 2010 set a zero waste goal of 75 to 90% diversion by 2020. The City Council further adopted a zero waste plan in 2012 that outlined a series of objectives and programs the city was to implement over the next decade to achieve the city's diversion and sustainability goals for zero waste. As of our latest CalRecycle diversion report, the City of Oceanside currently has a diversion rate of 67%. Since 2012, the city has been very successful in implementing citywide recycling services, implementing a nationally recognized zero waste schools program in partnership with OUSD, and also implementing multiple other programs focused on food recovery, development of the city's Green Oceanside Kitchen, a state-of-the-art facility and unique of its kind, as well as developing our city's most recent launch of the city's commercial food scrap recycling services. So we're in 2020. The original plan set goals and objectives to be achieved by 2020. So for the past year, we have evaluated where we're at. We've evaluated the opportunities and where we need to be able to reach our zero waste goals. Our 2020 zero waste plan updates our current zero waste goals. It eliminates outdated elements of the 2010 and 2012 zero waste plan, and it adds additional opportunities and program recommendations for food recovery, waste reduction, and repair opportunities, as well as adds advocacy support for extended producer responsibility to develop upstream solutions to materials. The 2020 zero waste plan that's being proposed today also includes a draft marine debris reduction ordinance for consideration in the near future. This ordinance, as drafted and included as an attachment in the plan, would reduce the impact of single-use materials and primarily polystyrene materials. It takes a tiered approach to compliance in order to provide flexibility as we deal with COVID and the economic recovery from COVID. The Marine Debris Reduction Ordinance, as drafted, takes a 3-year process to trying to eliminate these materials and works closely with our restaurant community to facilitate compliance or support them if they need added support. We are anticipating bringing this draft ordinance back to council spring of 2021 upon completion of an environmental review process, and then also in consideration of the impacts of COVID. The primary vehicle and aspect of the 2020 Zero Waste Plan actually is the inclusion of a SB 1383 action plan. Cal Recycle recently passed and finalized rules, SB 1383, that significantly mandates organics diversion across the state. SB 1383 mandates additional programs, additional inspection requirements, enforcement requirements, reporting, food recovery, and tracking, and puts that burden on the jurisdiction. SB 1383 has some strict implementation guidelines that commence already in 2022. SB 1383 will drive not only the diversion of commercial food scrap recycling, but will also drive the diversion of residential food scrap recycling in our near future in Oceanside. So the 2020 Zero Waste Plan, the majority of it actually includes programming recommendations and staffing recommendations to achieve compliance with this new state mandate. Additionally, please know that city staff has been actively advocating and participating and actually pushing back on the regulatory scope of SB 1383. SB 1383, the statute as originally drafted in 2016, now is over 100-page rulemaking that is extremely prescriptive. And in consideration of COVID, cities across California are pushing back, and we're actually organizing to potentially push for a legislative fix that would delay the regulatory timeline, would potentially eliminate the potential of enforcement penalties, and would provide additional funding support, because again, this regulation is a significant lift. The fiscal impact, there's no additional funding requested to adopt the 2020 Zero Waste Plan. The 2020 Zero Waste Plan merely identifies the programs and the needs in which our program needs to develop to achieve our goals over the next decade. The primary fiscal impact moving forward for the city's zero waste program and solid waste and recycling needs is related to the implementation of SB 1383, the state's mandatory organics mandate. At minimum, our estimates are indicating that the fiscal impact of SB 1383 compliance will require the addition of $3.8 additional full-time employees, as well as $815,000 annually to support implementation of the program through third-party consultants. The liability of SB 1383 for noncompliance is that it includes $500 to $10,000 per day and per violation penalties against the jurisdiction, and eventually generators as of 2024. There is a current $65,000 budget shortfall for additional positions and programs. We will in the future be looking to be able to provide funding resources via rate increases from the franchise agreement, as well as additional city funds. Another major component of the 2020 Zero Waste Plan, as well as SB 1383 Action Plan, includes the release of an RFP or a franchise agreement and a new franchise agreement that would be updated to be in alignment with current regulation as well as industry standards. So that concludes my presentation today. I'm pleased to be here to recommend approval of the 2020 Zero Waste Plan. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Foster, for that presentation. The Zero Waste Plan, 2020 Zero Waste Plan. Do we have any questions or comments from Ms. Foster while she's at the podium this afternoon? I'm hearing none, so I have a question for you. It's a planning document. The planning horizon is it 5 years, 10 years? How far out are you looking?
It's a 10-year planning horizon.
Okay, and one of the big elements is the mandatory organics diversion, that's being driven by SB 1383. So that's one of the big elements you're having to address now in this planning document going forward. So it's staffing and all those things. And I see potentially the future to go out and put the whole trash service is going to go out to bid at some time in the future. That's going to happen at some point. You're headed down that road with.
Excellent question, Chairperson Barden. Yes, you are correct that in order to update our existing services and in order to meet compliance with SB 1383, we need to actually update our franchise agreement significantly. So staff is currently in the process in the development of an RFP to be released later this year.
Okay, so that wouldn't just be updating the agreement with the existing franchisee. That would potentially open a door to putting it back out and to the public to
We will
bid
be
it.
releasing a
Okay.
request for proposals
Okay,
to provide
okay.
opportunity in the market.
All right, that's a pretty big deal, I think, for your group there, isn't it? Okay, those are my only comments. We'll move along. Thank you, Ms. Foster. All right, committee reports, item number 7. I don't think the committees are meeting, are they? So we have no items under item number 7 again. Okay, now we're up to the action items. We've got a number here, several we've seen already. I know we haven't had committees, so we haven't had a chance maybe to have a bite at the apple on detail on some of these. So if anyone does have questions or require any additional information, please speak up as we're going forward. So the first item here, item number 8A, is recommended ordinance amending chapters 13 and 33 of the city code. This was the item that Director Dale spoke about under the first presentation this afternoon. So are there any further input from staff on this item, or Director Dale, you guys have had your say on item 8A. Is there any further questions, or would anybody entertain a motion to move that item forward unless there's any further discussion?
Commissioner Rupp makes a motion to approve 8A.
I second it.
Thank you. Rupp to approve in a second. Any other further comments on this item, 8A?
This is Commissioner Cutler. I would like to thank the city staff for being able to come up with an edited version of it. That was very helpful for us to take a look at what the changes were. So thank you for taking the time and energy to do that.
Okay. Good. Okay, no other comments then. I'm going to call for the vote on item 8A to go forward to council as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Or any abstentions? Hearing none, that item passes. Thank you. We'll move on to item 8B.
Excuse me, Chair Barden, who was the second on that? I did not hear it.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that first item? we
Boyle.
voted?
Boyle.
Commissioner
okay.
Boyle, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jordan. If I move too fast, just flag me down. 8B, this is a purchase order for, looks like supplies. I don't know if this is for annual for a year, or any comments from staff on this? Is there any questions from any commissioners? Looks like kind of routine supplies for the department.
Commissioner Barden, John McKelvey here. I just wanted to clarify, we found a typographical error in the staff report. The amount that we are actually requesting is $145,000 additional for a total of I believe it's 175.3, if I'm not mistaken.
So both.
It's not 193. We had, we did a mathematical review and found a typo. So I just want to clarify that for the commissioners.
Okay, so then just to clarify, the recommendation now, that's 8B, has two different numbers in it. It would be a change order amount of what, Mr. McKelvey? 145 for a total of X. Can you tell us what those two
Correct.
numbers are so we can?
I
vote?
can. The numbers in the chart are correct. So it's $145,000 additional. We've already got a $30,000 purchase order in place, so it would be $175,000 total after all is said and done.
Thank you for
And
that
that staff
clarification.
report. You're welcome. The staff report has been corrected and will be correct when it goes to council. Apologize for the error.
We appreciate you clarifying that as well. Okay, does anybody have any questions? We have Mr. McKelvey available to us on this one. Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to recommend the approval of that change order to City Council.
So moved.
Sound like Commissioner Rates?
Yes.
And a second, please?
Commissioner Rupp seconds.
Commissioner Rupp. I'm Ron. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
8B, aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, that item passes. Thank you, Mr. McKelvey, for that clarification.
You're welcome. And Commissioner Barden, just to clarify, we are going to pull item 8C. We've got some additional information, and it's premature to take this forward at this time.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move past 8C. Moving on, we're down to 8D. This is related to the item that Ms. Leahy spoke about, the rejecting all the bids and doing the change order with NorCal Pump and Well Drilling. Are there any further comments or questions for Ms. Leahy on this, or are we prepared someone to make a motion to take this one forward?
I'll make the motion to move forward.
Commissioner Boyle, thank you.
Commissioner Bay.
Vey, Commissioner Vey. Thank you, Commissioner Vey. Any further discussion about this one? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that item passes as well. Thank you very much. That was 8D. We got a few here still. The rest of these are professional services agreements, all amendments to professional service agreements. Okay, 8E is Amendment 1. This is to Ferguson Enterprises, $100,000 professional service agreement. And this is related to the advanced metering infrastructure project, which we had a series of contracts were issued in the past. So this looks like it's adding on to one of those. Are there any questions about this contract or this PSA amendment related to the advanced metering infrastructure project? Is there anything that staff would like to add to this other than the staff report that we've had before us?
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to discuss that the change order was an addition in the technology that we will be receiving at the data collectors. This will allow the city to be able to add any future smart city type devices citywide. So things like streetlights, traffic lights, trash can levels, and it allows the rest of the city services to be added onto this network in the future if that's something that council would like us to proceed with.
Okay. Technology. Thank you for those comments, Ms. Leahy. Any questions or comments on item 8E we're looking at right now? Okay, would anybody care to make a motion to move that item forward, please?
So moved.
Commissioner Rates made a motion, a second.
Commissioner Rupp seconds.
Commissioner Rupp second that, okay. So that's the amendment. No further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, thank you, we're moving right along. Okay, the next one is, this is the 8F. This is Tetra Tech, the amendment related to the La Salina, which we had a presentation on. It's the $1 million amendment to the professional service agreement that takes it to 2.9. So it was a rather large one, but we discussed that with Ms. Leahy, and she had provided several answers to that. So with this, are there any further questions on this? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to move this item forward as well, since we heard the presentation and had questions already.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle.
Commissioner Bay, second.
Commissioner Vey, second. Thank you. All right, I think we've had plenty of discussion of this one. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. 8G, this is a professional service agreement. So this is approval of a new professional service agreement, $244,000, architects, design and construction admin for phase 1 of the new building down there. Ms. Leahy, is there anything you'd care to share with us on this one briefly?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Barton. This is, well, it's a new contract with Silman Wright. This Silman Wright purchased the company that has the original agreement. So this does include a slightly additional cost to complete the grading permit and building permit process through the city in order to issue the project for bid. But the new contract is with Silman Wright, who is the who acquired the previous company.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this for staff? Do I have a motion to advance this one to City Council as presented? It's 8G.
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner Rates. Any a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Are there any further discussions of 8G, the contract with Stillman Wright Architects at this point? Any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any extensions? Hearing none, that passes unanimously as well. We're moving right along to 8H. This is an amendment to a PSA with HDR related to the sewer system management audit. Okay, Lindsay, Ms. Leahy, tell us what this one is. It's $236,000 to get it up to 317 is the total, right?
Correct. Thank you, Chair Burden. So this is adding 2 additional scope items to the sanitary sewer management program update. The first item, while we were going through the update with HDR, our consultant, it was discovered that we were in need of completing an audit of our existing SSMP. And because HDR is now well-versed and very familiar with the program itself, it would be an easy lift for them to complete the audit themselves. And that's something that's required through the regulatory requirements. The other item was adding the sewer flow monitoring into their contract. Sewer flow monitoring is best to be conducted during the winter rainy months in order to capture the actual wet weather flow that's going through the system. At this time, this is needed in order to be incorporated into our master plan update, which is forthcoming, and be able to update our sewer model. And in order to, if we had gone out to a separate RFP at this time, we would essentially, by the time we got the contract awarded and ready to install the flow monitoring, would have missed this rainy season and would not have been able to do this until this time next year. And would have then subsequently delayed the sewer master plan effort that is coming up as well. So that was the majority of this additional cost is the sewer flow monitoring to be able to update and calibrate our sewer model.
That's a lot. There's a lot going on in there that's pretty important. Is there any comments or questions or any for staff or any discussion on this one item? I know it's yeah, some of this is regulatory, but some of it is planning study, like work about the sewer system modeling, right? Yes. Any thoughts, comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to take that forward if there's no other comments or questions for staff. Item 8H.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Rates. Is there a second?
Commissioner Cutler seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of moving that item forward, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any extensions? Yes. The motion moved. Okay, we're up to item 8I, recommend adoption of resolution to approve the 2020 Zero Waste Plan. Ms. Foster again, we've heard the presentation. We've got a resolution in here. We want to take this forward to council. This seems like a pretty big item. So I'll open the floor up to staff first if there's any further comments that you wish to share with us or any further information, and then open it up for discussion on the commissioners on this item.
Thank you, Chairperson Barden. No real additional comments at this time. I was here a decade ago recommending approval of our first resolution, and I'm proud to be here with the City of Oceanside recommending approval of moving forward with our sustainability goals.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Foster. Any discussion on this item from the commissioners?
So I had a question, Commissioner Vey. So this is a mandated thing from the state. Is that correct? This solid waste plan, is a state mandate? The county.
The zero waste plan in particular is not a state mandate. That's a planning document for our organization on what programs we want to prioritize and implement. But the fact remains that SB 1383, the regulation is so significant and will significantly drive diversion that it is the primary vehicle, the primary aspect of the plan that we would be looking to implement. So that part is state mandated, and we do not really have an option out. We're in the best place to just plan for it to do it in the most efficient way possible that supports our businesses and our residents.
Okay, so thank you. I guess I have to ask is if we do this and we meet the 2030 goal and all that stuff, we avoid fines, but it's fair to say this is a unfunded state mandate. I think that's a fair statement.
SB 1383 is an unfunded state mandate, so that's why we are advocating for additional funding support. It is entirely put upon the burden of the jurisdictions, the regulation itself.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, well, what do you do, right? You need to do it, yet they're not funding it, and we have that same problem with our school district. So, okay, got it. Thank you.
And any further comments or questions for Ms. Foster on that? I have a few comments of my own along those lines that I would share, but I'll defer to anyone else who wishes to talk.
Well, not to be funny, but I have the reputation at CalRecycle to have the most comments on record in reference to SB 1383 over the past 4 years. We have changed some of the language.
Thank you for that, and that does not surprise me somehow. But is there any other comments or questions for Ms. Foster on this item? I guess I would just share a few thoughts, and maybe there's a question in here. I'm not sure. I mean, going along with Commissioner Vay says, there's regulatory mandates that come at us as a municipality in the solid waste field, just as they do on the water or the sewer side, which I'm much more familiar with. So, well, what I hear you say is the plan is not mandated that it's a good business practice in your industry that we have this planning document that guides the city looking forward to deal with such regulatory challenges as this SB 1383. Is that a good characterization of the plan and what we have it for?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent characterization, Chairperson Barden. Our old plan, our plan's outdated. Our plan set
So
a
we
goal for
update our planning
2020.
horizon, yes.
So that kind of clarifies, updates it, sets where we're at, and identifies a pathway forward to be successful with our diversion goals, but to ensure that we meet minimal compliance.
Yeah. I guess along Commissioner Vay's line of reasoning is, as mandates come at us and they're unfunded, we hear about sewer fees and water fees and trash fees, so we're not talking about the fees right now, but the planning is basically saying there's regulatory pressures, and as they come at us, we're planning our best, and there's going to be costs associated with those, and there's going to be program elements, and that's what you're trying to get your brain around with this type of document to share with all of us. So I certainly appreciate that. I don't like the regulatory creep, and you always realize there's a cost to regulatory creep, and I think that's where maybe some concerns come from folks as you try to implement programs. So those are just my comments. Great job. I love planning documents. If you've had one and you're updating it, kudos to you for doing that. I know it's not easy. So with that, I'll get off my bully pulpit. And unless there's any further comments, I'd like to ask for a motion to advance this item to City Council as it's presented.
So moved.
That's Commissioner Rates. Thank you.
Boyle, second.
Commissioner Boyle, second. Okay, so if I'm going to ask, is there any further discussion on this item? The 2020 Zero Waste Plan for the City of Oceanside. Okay, all those in favor of sending forward, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, that item passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Foster. Good luck. Congratulations on completing your plan and moving it forward. That was a lengthy agenda. We're almost finished, folks. Thank you for your patience. Item number 9, discussion items. I do not have any discussion items. It's not my turn anyhow. Are there any discussion items from staff, Director Dale, that we need to talk about? I know we have a few staff reports later on we need to give some attention to. Item number 10, council liaison. Councilmember Christopher Rodriguez is not in attendance, so there will be no council report today. San Diego County Water Authority report, item number 11. That's Commissioner Boyle has shared the written summary with us. It's in the packet. You can all look at that. And Commissioner Boyle, I will open the floor up if there's any further comments that you have on that report. please share them with us at this time.
Yeah, I do. 2020 is, thank God, coming to an end pretty quick here with the Water Authority. Their last meeting is this coming Thursday. It's really, the board is operating on all cylinders. The Rainbow and Fallbrook separation is one of the largest items that's not been resolved. And the regional conveyance study, where the study A has been completed, and we're moving to study B, and they want a whole lot of dough to do this. And it's an extremely expensive project, extremely time consuming. I mean, like not paying back until I believe it's the 2060s and stuff like that. So there's a lot of questions about that. This last week, we got an update on the urban water management plan, which has a bunch of different things happening over the first half of the year, but they expect to have it completed and approved by June. And that's about it. Thank you. All the lawsuits, by the way, are still moving along the same way they've been moving along for a long time. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle, for that update and for keeping on top of what's going on down at the Water Authority. Okay, item number 12, staff and water utility directors items. I know we have two reports here. We have our first item, 12A, is Mr. Popma. That's the monthly report that we usually receive. And then I know we have another one that maybe we need to spend a little time with. So first item, 12A, is there any questions? That was included in the packet. Is there any questions or comments on that? Or is Mr. Popma is probably out there somewhere. He's been around before. If he had any comments.
I am here.
Hello, there you are.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Popma on his report, item 12A? Or are there any highlights that you wish to share with us, Mr. Popma, while you have the floor for a few brief moments?
October was a very good month for us. No stoppages, no city stoppages. We had 15 minor complaints. Other than that, moving forward with our inspection and cleaning, hit 141% of our goal, so everything's good.
All right, very good. Thank you. Tell the folks, good job. Bravo Zula. There's no questions. We're going to move off that to item 12B, and I think we have another staff member with us, Mr. Guzman. I might get that correct, Guzman? To talk about biosolids handling and sludge handling services contract. This sounds like this could be a heavy one.
And let me
no
just,
pun intended.
let me tee that up for Mr. Guzman. I've asked that he provide an oral report on this contract as it is currently in process. We do have a timing issue with getting this in front of council before the current contract expires. And so we'll be returning at the next commission meeting with an after action staff report that was brought to council. So I'll let Rudy provide the details about the contract.
Hello, Chair Barden.
Good afternoon.
Good to be here, and fellow committee members. So as Ms. Dell brought out, this is an oral report on a fairly large contract that involves hauling what we call our biosolids. Generally, it's a 2-year contract that has options to be extended, and the current one was extended from 2-year to a 4-year contract, but it does end shortly. So I'll just give a brief description of our efforts in trying to secure a contractor to haul our biosolids. We have 3 facilities that do produce solids that need to be hauled away to an acceptable site. Some of the solids are put onto the ground for fertilizer. Others are landfilled. And then we do secure one contractor to handle both deliveries. And as I said, it is a 2-year contract with the option to extend. And this Oceanside staff has prepared an RFP that was posted on the eBid board on November 3rd, which closes on December 1st. Questions were due on November 16th. We did field those questions, and we sent out, posted an addenda to answer those questions today. And so it is moving forward to secure that contract. And as Ms. Dell brought out, this will be followed up by a written report once council has taken action. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guzman. Are there any questions on that staff report? What we've basically got is a contract's going to be let go to council, and we'll hear about it after the fact. I guess one question I would have, Mr. Guzman, is what's the financial magnitude of what we're talking about? I think this is probably a fairly large part of the operation, the solids handling, isn't it, down there? I mean, are we talking $1 million contract, a $20 million contract, just an order of magnitude?
Yes, of course. So in general, it's about $800,000 a year, with $600,000 for our larger plant, and
okay.
two or 300,000 for our smaller plant. The water treatment plant hauls a few trailers a year, so it's pretty insignificant compared to the others. But that's the scope for you, Chair Barden.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Guzman while we have him on here on this topic? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Good luck with your proposal. I hope you get some good competition and some great pricing. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Okay, we're done with that item. We're going to move on to item number 13, Chairman's Report. I do not have any report other than to say thank you, everyone, for the meeting working with Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip something?
No, I had a reminder for you to discuss the commissioner vacancy.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I did have one item, business item to report. As you know, last meeting, we did have a new alternate commissioner who was coming on the council. As it turns out, that person will not be seated on the council due to personal reasons, and that vacancy now exists again on the council. So staff wanted me to let the other commissioners know, if you knew of a member of the public who may have an interest and the ability to serve, certainly let them know that there's a vacancy on the commission, and maybe there will be some volunteers. So that position is open, and the city will be seeking volunteers for it. Okay? Thank you.
And let me just add, yeah, if you do know of someone from the public that is interested in serving, they can contact the clerk's office to submit an application, and then it goes through the process to be appointed through the mayor's office and the city council.
Okay.
And it's the alternate 2 position that's vacant.
Okay. That goes to the city clerk's office. Thank you, Director Dale. And I had no other comments other than thanks for the meeting going well, and I can see everybody on Zoom, so I'm hoping it's going smooth for you. And it seems like we get better each time here. So Ms. Jordan and the IT folks, kudos. Thank you. That concludes my comments. Any other for the good of the order? Commissioner items. I can see some of you on the screen.
I'll just reiterate, the Zoom format is much better, so thank you for setting it up.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
Great.
Much better.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Rupp. Zoom is much better. Also, I just wanted to point out that, I live just kind of down the street from where they're doing the construction over off of Paula and Cocoa Palms. And wow, I mean, they're doing some pretty major stuff over there. So, they closed the road down, and, I was kind of checking it out. So I could just see a lot of activity happening. And I think our project dollars hard at work to get that done. So pretty exciting that that's happening. And just want to let you know that pretty impressed with what they're building over there.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else? The good of the order?
This is Commissioner Cutler. I had one item I'd like to throw out there for consideration. I know that we haven't had a subcommittee meeting for water, sewer, or for the solids in a while, but now that we've got the Zoom meetings working, I'd like to throw out an idea of us having those subcommittee meetings again. I think they give us some opportunity to ask questions in a more informal environment before they're going to voting before city council meetings, but it also gives us an opportunity to, like I said, ask some questions in an informal environment, but also city staff to prepare for utility commission based on some of the questions that come up in those subcommittee meetings. So not sure what action needs to be taken other than I'd like to see if that's something we can move forward with.
Vice Chair Cutler, I can respond to that. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We did have a real brief internal discussion today, and we are able to accommodate that request via the Zoom platform. And my only concern was ensuring that the public was able to participate, but this platform has the ability for the public to participate. And we've used it for a lot of other community workshops that we've had to do virtually during COVID, so we can certainly resume those committee meetings in the next month in advance of the January meeting.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
And any other commissioners, any comments?
I just want to say happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas since we'll meet again before January.
Thank you, Commissioner Rates.
Very nice.
Same to everyone. I love all the backgrounds too that you all have that I get to see. Yeah. Okay. With that, I am going to adjourn the meeting. This meeting of the Utility Commission is now adjourned to Tuesday, January 19th in 2021. 2020 will be behind us. Thank you all and have a wonderful holiday.